today. I could not be more excited for this episode. This is the first episode we're going to be launching with one of my all-time favorite people on this planet. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Today's the Day with Zack Andersen. What up, what up, what up? Welcome to Today's the Day. I am so freaking excited for today's episode. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Today's the Day. Much love to everybody. Today's the day. So to intro him real quick, we have Marco Niccoli, literally one of my absolute, again, favorite human beings on the planet, favorite people to spend time with, favorite people to talk to, discuss ideas with. So I'm really excited to dive into this. Just a little background on Marco. Grew up with 4 brothers, middle child. Yeah. You grew up watching your dad run a deli in LA, correct? What was it called?
Bruno's Old World Italian Deli.
Okay, you watched him run that in LA. Fast forward through high school and everything, you have so many accolades. I'm literally giving like probably 5% of them.
I'm good. I'm happy with that.
Like 5%. But by 22, you were the youngest executive chef in Utah.
Yep.
Right. You got to the point where you were producing 500 events annually, which I want to actually ask about in just a minute. But in your bio, it says 500 events annually, which is nutty. You cooked for the last 3 presidents. You've cooked for Oprah Winfrey and probably a massive list of other people that's just like mind-boggling to think about.
It's been good.
Which I'm excited to talk about a little bit too. And then probably the coolest thing that we were just talking about a little bit, when COVID hit, you can only imagine you being a chef, hosting events as like your primary occupation. Yeah. You pivoted massive when COVID hit, because everything shut down. You probably weren't hosting any events. No one was paying you to come and cook for them, I assume, or very, very little. And you went and you started your salt company out of your garage, went and grinded that out, you and Aubrey, I assume, right?
Yeah.
And now you're to the point where that's absolutely thriving, killing it, dominating, and you released your cookbook in that little last couple year period as well.
It's been a wild couple of years, but
it's been a nuts couple of years. But again, dude, I am so freaking excited to go in here and dive in about it. The reason I'm so excited for this, I want to touch on this for everybody. So just kind of our relationship. I've had the experience to go and be like an attendee at your events, like go and like just kind of, you didn't really know me, I didn't really know you, go and attend, eat your food. More importantly than eating your food, because I'm not a foodie at all, and you know that. But I eat all your food.
We're making him a foodie.
Yeah, you're making me a foodie. Like experience your events. Like they're like an experience through and through, which is kind of why it's been so cool. But then past that, we've gotten really close. We've gone on trips together. We've hung out together. We've gone and partied together. We've had a blast together. Yeah. But we've never really sat down and like broken it down.
It's true. I mean, we do in those moments when we're like on a trip or something, but it's super cool. And honestly, it's a privilege to be on this show. I've been able to watch you from a distance for many years now. And what you are doing is like incredible. And I don't know if I can say this, but like I'm proud of who you are. And
you can
like,
absolutely say it.
And that like we've been able to interact in this key part of our life. I also, full disclosure, I don't know if anything I'm about to say has any worth, but I can tell you this, it's come from like a fucking ton of hard work. And that's why I love you, because you're not about just like some magic switch. Like you're putting in the work to get to where you are. And that's what I've always admired about you.
No, thank you. And again, thank you for being on. And I actually, one part of that I completely disagree with. It absolutely has worth, because even in our little side conversations, you've gone and given me, you've become a massive mentor. So to say you don't know if you can say you're proud of me, that's actually music to my ears. I appreciate it big time. So kicking it off, I want to dive into a lot of things. And again, I could talk all day to you, but give me a rundown on your story. So your background, again, grew up with 4 brothers. You're one of the middle brothers. Background of food in your family.
Yeah, so I grew up in a Sicilian home, so Italian but Sicilian, and I think there's a difference there. And throughout my whole life, I've started to realize what the difference is, which is Sicilians are hard workers, man. Like we're down there at the bottom of Italy, we just work. And I never realized it until I became an adult, but my mom and dad are like 2 of the hardest workers I've ever met. So I grew up watching my brothers, you know, the dynamics of being in a home with 4 other boys, and we just like, there was wrestling, there was fighting, but we all understood what it took to work hard. And so it was so fun growing up. My mom and dad actually met in the restaurant. So the restaurant and food has been like a huge part of my life throughout.
It's deep rooted.
Deep rooted.
It's deep rooted.
So my papa was a liquor salesman in LA, one of the first in LA. And my pops was running these Italian delis. He had 5 of them, opened his first one at like 29 and was just grinding. And my mom was a young college student at San Diego State and became a waitress at my dad's restaurant. So that's how they met. My dad owned the restaurants. My mom was a waitress, college. They met, got married. He wanted like a better life for all of us. So he sold all the restaurants and moved up to San Diego. So all of us were born in San Diego after he had just gotten done with this long restaurant career. And he wanted desperately for all of us to kind of somehow get back to the food industry. And you can see throughout my life how he like made that a point. Every Sunday we would cook together. He would like, he and my mom would show us food that was like different or unique. Some of my tattoos talk about it, but like I have early memories of eating artichokes, sitting on the counter with freaking diapers on, eating artichokes, dude.
How many kids with diapers are eating artichokes?
Dipping it in mayonnaise, dude.
I would still ask you, what is this if you gave me an artichoke? And you know that's true, because every time you serve me a dish, I'm like, what is this? That's incredible.
Hey, we're working to it, though.
We're doing good. We're doing really good.
So food was just always there. Like it was always how we came together. It was how our family interacted. And then in one way or another, all of us have ended up in the food industry in some capacity. So it's been
because you and your brother, even since then, you guys have done with Harley Davidson, the partnership where you guys make the gourmet sliders with Harley Davidson, right?
Yeah. So my little brother is still involved with that group. They do like catering. I came on and helped them build out a catering program. So when I first got into the industry, I call it, because I never went to college. So I call my education the grease trap education. Because
in the trenches.
In the restaurant, there's a thing called the grease trap, and every night you got to clean it out. And for like from 14 until like 16, dude, every weekend I was cleaning the freaking grease trap. And I was grinding. But
that's so awesome.
So my brothers were in like the brick and mortar space for a long time. I got a brother doing like meal prep. I have a brother and a sister-in-law that did like juices and then they do like salad. They're now in Ventura. I had a brother in like commercial salami sales. So like
that's so
making
sick.
Salamis. So yeah, in different ways, we've all kind of been in and out of the industry. And now it's all I know. I married a chef.
Yeah.
So she's my better half. And she, she's honestly the magic that made me change.
Really?
Yeah. Cause I was working for a catering company, the largest one in the state of Utah. Okay. I was with them for 10 years. And I would have just kept grinding. Like, that's just my personality is work. And it wasn't until I met Aubrey where she was like, dude, you're bigger than this. Like, you need to test it. Like, go out and do it yourself. And it wasn't until her that I was like, okay, let's do this. And it was scary, but man, my life since I left that catering company was
massive pivot.
Oh, life changing.
And what year was that?
Oh man, that was like 2013.
Okay.
And I bounced around a little bit, but 2013, I just had, decided that it was time for me to start my own business.
So rad.
Yeah. Aubrey and I started something together at that point, but I still kept doing kind of corporate setting jobs. I worked for Traeger Grills for a while.
Yep.
Helped them launch and built the European department, like what they do in Europe now. And now Traeger's obviously humongous. So
cool.
Yeah.
So cool. So there's one thing you said. So one thing I've always known since talking to you and meeting you, your family's like one of the common denominators, food, right? You just touched on another one that I really wanted to hit on, and part of the reasons for having you on, and the reason I say I disagree that you might not have value to add. Excuse me, I'm sick, so I'm going to be coughing this whole time. It drives me nuts. But literally another common denominator, it sounds like you just touched on, is literally your guys' work ethic is like sickening. And when I say that, I'm around some of the hardest workers. I think I would argue some of the hardest workers out there.
Yeah.
And I've been lucky enough to watch some of the hardest workers, and I like to think of myself as a really hard worker, but I kid you not, for those of you guys watching, one of my first experiences with Marco, we go out on this houseboat to the middle of nowhere in a lake, and he somehow has to go create a food experience, 3 meals a day, all the snacks, every day for 7 days straight or whatever it was. On top of that, though, 6 a.m., he's running on the helicopter pad doing his workouts, cooking breakfast by the time I roll my lazy ass out of bed. And then at 2 a.m., we're night surfing with music blaring and he's going hard shotgunning a bang. I'm like, I don't understand. That must be Sicilian blood. It all makes sense now. I've never thought about that. I don't understand how this dude ticks this way. I kid you not. It's the most impressive thing ever. And I've seen other events too. Like, you really go dump your soul into the work part of it.
Yeah.
And then you literally go create an experience out of everything. So that's kind of a big part of what I want to talk about and bring you on is like, when did you go and like, it sounds like Aubrey is a big part of it, but you went and started doing things on a bigger scale. Everything you do is maxed out. Everything you do. Like if you're showing up to go night surf, it's the funnest night surf sesh ever. Right. And I love finding people like that because that's like, that makes everything more fun. When we go on a trip to LA, it's going to be a blast. Like I know it is. Like when we're doing a small event, just hang out, whatever it is, it's always going to be 10 times better than it was. You're a massive value add, even when you're not there to add value necessarily. Does that make sense? When in life, where did you get that?
Yeah, dude, I appreciate that. But like, honestly, to answer the question, it's just always been there. Like it's always, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going all the way in. And I love the industry that you're in. And I've been able to be around a lot of guys who are doing summer sales or just doing some high level of sales. And I appreciate it. I know it's a very different industry, but this is the difference. At age 14, I started cooking. And every weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I was cooking. I was in the kitchen. I was in the restaurant. I was in the dish pit when all of my friends were out hanging out, playing for the weekend. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even realize it. It just became natural that like on the weekends, I'm going to go make some money. I'm going to go work. I'm going to go do what I love. And so as I became an adult, if I'm working every weekend, I better make it fun.
Yeah.
Because, like, that's my only time off.
Exactly. Right? Yep.
And so, I mean, I just did a trip last week, and I got an incredible message from the person I got to cook with. And the message was like, I've known you for almost 10 years now, and I don't know what it is. This is what Casey was saying to me. He says, I don't know what it is about you, but there's like this energy about you. And I love that people feel that energy, but really what it is I fucking love what I do. Like, yeah, it's in my core. I don't know anything else.
Yeah.
And food is a unique art form where I get to show you my talents, both with your eyes, with your nose, mm-hmm. and with your mouth. Like that. Yeah. I get to like engulf you with this like love that I have for cooking. Mm-hmm. And it's just bled into other things. Like, dude, if I'm going to go night surfing, we're going to go all the way.
Yeah, we got pink wigs, we got Bang energy drinks, and we're going all the way. It's so true. No, I love
Marky
that.
shows up.
Marky comes out and it gets so weird and we wake up with vertigo because our neck is out. Oh my gosh. No, I love that.
Somebody saw videos from that. Like that, those videos still pop up. The part that Zach's not telling you is that like legit one of our homies like got a concussion
because he was head whipping so hard. He was out the whole next day on the boat. But the crazy thing is you're up at 6 a.m. doing your workout, making us breakfast, and he's on the couch with his wife tickling his head, and he's like cross-eyed. He can't even see straight. And I don't want to show it, but my neck is, I feel like I'm 75, dude. I'm like, I got to play big though because Marco's going hard. And then we do it all again the next night. Yeah. So, dude, I love that. And kind of the point of this podcast, and people realize we jump all over the place. We don't really go hit on like anything super, super in depth other than just going and getting the most out of life. Like the point of this podcast, and today's the day, and you might not recognize it, but today's the day is like a motto I've gone by forever. And it's just like you wake, it's all you got, right? Like today is all you got, really. So go get the most out of it. And the whole point of this is I've had very, very key conversations that have helped me go and look at life in the way of like, okay, I should go get the most out of this, whether that's work related, fun related, anything. Like if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it exactly how you said. So that's why I say, again, I disagree with your statement at the beginning. The value you have is immense because I truly think, and the reason you're our first episode, because I have a lot of options, you're our first episode, is because like you really do go and get the most out of every single day. And you have this lens on your eyes that's like, dude, everything's beautiful. Like everything can be a blast. Everything can be big. Yeah. Whatever it is, it'll be big. So I love that. And I love that you also mentioned because what you do, you love that so much, it bleeds into other things. Like you really do go, and if you're going to work, you may as well go and enjoy it. And I've embodied that big time in what I do as well. Did you have an example of that? Like, is that something your dad would do that you saw, or where did you, I know you said it's always been in you, but where did you see that?
So I think it's both my dad passed when I was 18. And so he was obviously like a hero, a role model, but he was gone when I was 18. And all of a sudden, like, you know, you have to realize, and not that my mom wasn't there before, because she certainly was. She's the one making breakfast every day, getting us to school every day, cooking dinner every day. Like, she was grinding. But as soon as my dad passed, she just went right back to work. Like, okay, now it's time to just do my part. Like, Bruno's gone, and now I'm going to take care of the family. And I have 2 younger brothers, so there were still definitely people at the house. And so she went right back to school teaching, grinding. And so it wasn't until I became an adult that I realized those examples I had in my life that, like, my mom could have curled up and just been like, my husband's gone, I'm done. But instead, she's like, I love my kids, I love my life, I'm just going to go right back to it. She's always had a positive attitude about it. It doesn't mean that there is not hard days. Yeah. Because there are. And I mean, I have them still. I'm 20 plus years into my career. I'm 35 years old. And I just probably did one of the hardest 3 weeks of my professional career, like back-to-back nights, cooking breakfast.
And then you drove your ass down here to go on the podcast. Hey, you drove your ass down here.
When the homie calls, I show up.
I love it.
You know, and that's what it's about, honestly, like showing up for those people that show up for you. Yeah. And never burning bridges. Like, I think I've done a decent job at keeping relationships. People I cooked for when I was 21 years old, I'm still cooking for today. Oh, yeah. And that's rare. Like, I don't think people keep those relationships for that long.
Exactly. And that's a multiple part thing. That's something I want to jump into a little bit later, but because you touched on it, that's multiple things that you do. Like, your superpowers are you connect with people. Yeah. You make sure those connections stay, like, very, very, very healthy, which is, it takes maintenance. It takes time. And then when you're called to, like, provide a value, whatever that is, like, if you're invited on a trip, you're going to be the favorite invitee, right? If you're the chef, you're going to be the best chef. You're going to create the best experiences. So that's like your superpowers. And I wanted people to understand that, like, you're incredible at going and mending or just having relationships, keeping them good, and then going and giving an experience that's unforgettable. People want to experience it again, which is so sick. Yeah. But what you were touching on just before that, you had talked about it, and this is one of my favorite questions I ask everyone we interview, because a lot of people we bring on, they're viewed as successful in whatever aspect you think that might be. So whether it's financial or just in their career, just getting the most out of life, which is the true success, is being happy. People hear their accolades, they hear where they're at, and it's like, oh, they're just on a totally different playing field than me. Most people just don't feel that they're in that realm, and I've been there, right? And I think one thing that's super important to realize for multiple reasons is you just said it. Like, you have those hard days, you have those trials, everything like that. So my question for you is, like, what is your biggest, or like when I say it, like your biggest failure or like your biggest rut you've ever been in, where like, oh, it's just is so, like, everything was going wrong, right? If there's a moment that you mind sharing, right, for you, and 2 reasons for it. I want to hear kind of how you handled it and how you dealt with it. But more importantly, I want people to realize, like, dude, even freaking happy-go-lucky Marco, right, having a blast everywhere he goes, every corner he turns, it's just amazing. Like, also has these experiences, but he bounces back, and that's what matters. It's not if it's going to happen, it's just how you deal with it. Yeah. Right. So I'm curious, like, what would you consider your biggest rut, failure, toughest, whatever comes to mind when I say that?
It's a great question, and I like the lead up, because I do think people listen to these things and they're like, oh, that they're just on a different level. Like, that doesn't like, that doesn't apply to me. I don't know if I have those right skills. It's honestly bullshit, because in reality, every year is hard.
Oh yeah.
Like, every year it's just a different challenge. And so I think I've had challenges all my career, but one that kind of, I don't know if I would say it shocked me or it scared me the most, was just recently, March 2020. Everyone's scared, right? Like, the world is completely changed on its head.
Your industry is upside down.
Upside down. Yeah. The restaurants are closing. We're already an underappreciated industry, in the sense that, like, staffing is hard. it's not like a career path for a lot of people. They're like, oh, I'm going to go serve tables until I get a real job kind of thing. So like, it's already a very, very tough. I mean, the margins in I don't think people know the margins in the restaurant industry are 10%. Like, that's stupid.
That's stupid.
And you're working Monday through Sunday. Like, that's the fact that anyone wants to be in this space. So anyway, the world comes to a halt. I had just spent 20 plus years building a company, building a brand. And when I say brand, like me, building a reputation. And all of a sudden the clients they're not calling anymore. Like, and it's no fault of theirs.
Yeah.
Everyone's shut down. No one's throwing parties. No one's going to Lake Powell.
Yeah.
No one's going to freaking LA. Like, everywhere I've traveled up until that, it's shut down. And it didn't shut down gradually. It was like
immediate,
lights off.
Yeah.
I remember because I cook for Rudy Gobert, and shout out to Rudy. I love you, bro. But the day that Rudy kind of did that stupid ass thing on ESPN where he touched the mic, like, that was the day. That was the day I was like,
we love Rudy.
Love you, Rudy.
We love Rudy.
I love you, bro. I do. I love that guy. But that was the day that, like, I realized, oh my gosh, I got to figure out, I got to undo what I've just built and start over. And I remember,
how terrifying is that?
Dude, oh my gosh. Not just terrifying, but so frustrating.
Oh yeah.
And you probably see this too in your industry. Like, every year you work to build this amazing team, and some stay with you and some don't. And you got to start over every year building a team that believes in. Anyway, like, it was so scary for me because it had never happened in my career. All of a sudden lights are off. I don't have like a long runway. Like, I have savings, but not like, there was no end in sight. Like, we didn't know how long the pandemic was going to last.
Yep.
So anyway, I go in the pantry and I start making scrambled eggs for my kids because everyone was at home and we were just going like freaking nuts. And I pull out this jar and it's this salt that I've been making for all my career. I've been making it because I used to have culinary students who'd come into the kitchen and cook with us. And I wanted a product that they wouldn't mess up the food. So I'm like, hey, just put my salt on this stuff.
It's the magic sauce. The magic salt.
You can't mess up my food.
I love it. And you're saying that could make my steaks good.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's
good.
That magic salt, man. Okay. And I pull it out like I always do to put on the scrambled eggs. And it was like a light bulb turned on, man. I was like, oh my gosh, we could sell this stuff. And Aubrey, she kind of laughed for a second. She's like, you're nuts, dude. You're a chef. Like, people aren't going to buy this stuff. Long story short, we went to Walmart. We bought every mason jar from Salt Lake County to Utah County that I could find. I went to every Walmart that was open. We bought everyone. We started filling them with jars in the garage, and we started selling salt out of the garage, dude. And it's now like...
I bought a salt. I bought one. It's unopened, bro. I'm sorry to say it. I'm sorry to say it. I support, dude. I'll buy the salt. I haven't cooked a damn thing. It's unopened in my kitchen. I'm sorry.
It's all right. Hey,
that's so sick, though.
Love, yeah.
That's so sick, though. So touching even like the way you pivoted, that's so cool. And like, how many people would have had that idea? This is the key part of that. How many people would have had that idea? Been like, oh, I could sell this, and like, cool idea. Kept making eggs, serve it to your kids. Go back to oh, poor me. Like, my whole industry's upside down. Like 95% or more would have gone that route. There's very small percentage that would have been like, and this is the dog in you. Like, this is like the freaking, I guess, the Sicilian blood in you, right? Where it's like, you go buy every mason jar in your county and every surrounding county at Walmart, and you just start selling salt. I love it. I love it. Like, that's so sick. But to dive more into kind of the feeling, because, like, seriously, the feelings you were feeling, just absolute, you were terrified, I assume, right? It was probably, you said no end in sight, and it was all that. And then, like, to still go and hold that mentality of, like, we're going to get out of it is so sick. Like, that's what's cool to me.
I think people, I think your statistic is right. 90% of people will just be like, well, I'm going to wait, and somebody's going to bail me out. No one's coming, dude.
Yeah.
No one's coming to bail you out.
Yeah.
And the sooner you realize that, the more successful you're going to be.
Yep.
There's no magic, like, switch. This is what I think so fast. I mean, Aubrey and I get to cook for incredible people all the time, but we also get to accidentally be a part of conversations that are going on at this high level, these high wealth individuals. There's no magic. Like, there's no secret pill or like something. They just work, and they're willing to work when it sucks the most. And in 2022, 2020, March, that was when it sucked the most for me.
Yeah.
And I just chose like, oh, we're going to grind. Like, that's just what we're going to do. There's no back door. There's no way out. Like,
but just as important, because you said they grind when it sucks, like when they have to, just as important as that. So there's this quote, it's sweat in times of peace so you don't have to bleed in times of war, right? And just as important as you grind when it sucks, like, yes, like when your industry's upside down, you have to go make something happen. Rewind. For 20 years, you've been making this salt. Like, you've been perfecting this so that even your shitty culinary students can go make a good meal just because of salt. Like, that's actually that's the sauce. Like, that's the secret. The 20 years of you making that, like, you didn't have to go create you just had to go scale that thing. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So all that work in the time of peace, right, when things were going well, and all that extra work you put in there paid off in the times of war, right? Which is something that I've kind of taken, and I think that squashes that mentality. And I bet a lot of those rooms you sit in, a lot of those people probably had a lot of opportunities, a lot of benchmarks where they could have gotten really, really complacent. Mm-hmm. Like, you're around these high wealth individuals, and when you're talking like that top 1% of like wealthy individuals, they had so many exits from companies or so many points in time where they could have gotten complacent, right? Which is like the biggest trap ever. Yeah. But they were busting their ass in times of peace when things were going well. That way, when war came, they didn't have to go and bleed. Right, which I think that's so cool. I love that.
I love that quote, man.
It's a cool quote. Solid, huh? Changed my life. That was from one of my leaders early on. Like, I just come off of one of my biggest weeks, one of my best weeks ever, and they're like, go do better this next week, because I was getting complacent, I was getting comfortable, right? So it's a really, really cool quote. I have it written I have like these flashcards and notes. I have it written in my quotes, but that segues into, you mentioned something that I just want to dive into just for the hell of it, just for fun. You have, and then we'll get back into like the nitty gritty, like the helpful stuff. This is more so for my entertainment, though. You have cooked for some absolutely ridiculous names, like some out there situations, people, everything like that. Like, I'm curious, what is your all-time favorite, or do you have like an all-time favorite story? Like, I cooked for them one time and this happened. Like, this was nuts.
An all-time story. I mean, we've had the honor of doing some crazy, crazy things. And, I mean,
just list a few of what you've done, and then we'll find a story. Like, so you've cooked for the last 3 presidents.
Yeah, well, let's start there.
Yeah.
This is a good one. So I got to cook for Donald Trump. That was, as you would expect, pretty crazy.
Absolutely. Not boring. There's no way it was boring.
There was no boringness.
That's amazing.
Good times. I think President Obama was actually the most surprising. So this is,
okay.
I don't know if it's like my all-time favorite story, but it was by far the most surprising opportunity, or like incidents cooking for like these types of people. So he was in town for for a meeting. He was up at the McEwen Mansion in Salt Lake City. He was meeting with government officials, and we were cooking him breakfast. All of us had to have background checks, which is so gnarly.
That's so gnarly.
And I was young, dude, like really young, in my 20s. And you got this Secret Service dude hanging out in the kitchen. You better make sure that secret sauce is good.
He's watching everything.
And I think they were watching tighter because, I mean, you know, Utah, like that. Anyway, President Obama, I don't know if he thought he was safe in Utah, but I love him. So the point of the story, we're cooking him breakfast. You got all these Secret Service watching you cook. You have to get background checks. I think there was like 3 servers and like 3 or 4 chefs on this event. We're making him breakfast. We get breakfast out, and one of the servers was fairly new, but she was very talented, and she was going around filling people's cups with coffee, like refilling people's cups. And she got like distracted for a second and overfilled President Obama's cup of coffee. And
that's been her nightmare for a week leading up to it. She's like, don't spill the coffee on Obama. Don't spill the coffee on Obama.
Dude, full on his lap, like hot coffee. Homie, like, President just jumps up, and then obviously security's like on top of her. She's screaming, crying, and it felt like an attorney. It felt like an attorney, but within seconds, he's like, "Everyone, calm down. I have more suits." And it was just like so cool. He could have been he could have been an ass about
For
it.
sure.
He could have been like,
and no one would have been surprised.
no.
Yeah.
And instead he just was like, it's chill. And she was a mess, like just crying hysterically. And he was like trying to calm her down. He walked out, changed suits, and came back out and kept eating breakfast. So, and to be a part of that moment was cool. Cause when I'm around people, they're turned down because they're eating. They're just like having their personal moment.
Yep.
So you get to really see what people are about when no one's watching, there's no cameras on them. Most of the time, my clients are vacationing, and so it's like they're either with their family or people they really love, and so I get to see people in their realest moments,
most authentic self.
Yeah.
So cool.
It was crazy.
That's nuts, dude. Could you imagine that for her, that story?
Oh man.
And he probably doesn't even remember, or maybe he does. I don't know. I mean, maybe he does.
I bet he doesn't remember.
So crazy.
Dude. Yeah.
So along with that, so you've been around some of those people, and those people are in their positions for a reason. A lot of the people they all are actually. Again, like one thing I always tell people when they come on is like, I can't stand when people discredit other people's success. If someone is the president of the United States, they got there for a reason, whether you like them or not. Somehow they did. Yeah. And if they're a multi-millionaire, they got there somehow, right? Everyone goes and they live their experience and they have different tickets, but everyone still has to go and make the most out of it. So my next question would be, you've sat with some of these people who are so inspiring. What's the most valuable thing, like nugget, you've ever gotten out of an experience? Like those conversations where you're accidentally a part of, like you said, or you've just been not eavesdropping, but you're there and you're hearing these conversations. What's like the most valuable thing you've ever pulled from an experience like that?
Oh man, it's a really great question, Zach.
I'm putting you on the spot.
No, it's good. I think the answer again is not one singular moment, but there's been an individual we both know and known for years, Todd Peterson. I've cooked for this guy for almost 11 years now, and I've cooked for presidents. I've cooked for NBA athletes, NFL athletes, models, celebrities, artists. Todd Peterson is honestly, out of all of them, the only one that I can say is good to his core. And when I say good to his core, it's not like one interaction. He's not just friendly with me or kind or pays well. I see his interaction with his kids. I see his interaction with his wife. I see how he interacts with his employees. And if I had to like put him into a box and label it as one thing, he is a good human being. Like he just wants to take care of people. And it wasn't after he got rich. It's been his whole life. He just wants to take care of people.
Yep.
And so for me, I've watched that for 11 years and I've implemented it in my business. Like when people come work for me, I want them to leave when it's time for them to go do their other things and think, dude, working for Marco was a fucking party.
It was
all
dope.
the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm turning it on. Like this is me.
Yeah.
Like, you know that. Like we've been around each other enough. Like it's not, on Fridays, Marco turns it up. No, it's like, I want people to remember me as the guy that just always was there, fully present, fully engaged. Because I watched that for 11 years with Todd. And he,
Man, I can echo that.
Yeah.
Todd, I can echo that 100%. Everything you just said, like that's one of the most influential people in a lot of people's lives.
Yeah.
Even people he barely knows. And one thing I was going to touch on too, one of your superpowers is maybe it came from watching Todd for 11 years. Maybe you can speak on this. Like one thing you are unbelievably good at, which he is like the best I've ever seen, no matter who he's talking to or what just happened to him or what situation is or who the person he's talking to is, anything, no circumstance will change how this plays out. He makes whoever he's talking to feel like the most important person in the world.
Yeah.
Like in the world. And you're really good at that too. Part of the reason we're friends, because I'm a little bit timid, honestly, when I first meet people, but you're super, super approachable. right? Like you're out there cranking, busting, and I'm this freaking 18-year-old just eating your food, and you're giving like me and you. I'm like looking at your food disgusted because I don't know what it is, and it's like this amazing dish, and then you still go and you make me feel like the most important person in the room. That's kind of why that's how our relationship started. So, did you get that from Todd? Like where did that come from, and how do you do that?
I think Todd obviously improved on it, but it came from my mom. So and again, like you don't appreciate these little nuggets until you become an adult and you're like faced with dealing with challenges. But so here's a great story about my mom. And this is something that subconsciously, like I don't even realize I'm doing it, but I'm analyzing a person. Every time I meet somebody, I'm figuring out how that person and I can connect. And my mom used to do this. So she's got 5 boys. All of us are very different and have different challenges. So when I can't remember how old I must have been like maybe 12 or 13. Maybe I was younger. I don't know.
Okay.
I couldn't, I was struggling with this math in school. Like, I just couldn't get it. So instead of just my mom sitting down and doing math with me, she knew that food meant something to me and like I could learn through that. So she took me to this pizza restaurant. And bro, she like built a pie, like a pizza, and showed me how to do equations by
Shut up.
Oh, bro, she dialed me.
Shut up.
She dialed me.
You're doing pepperoni algebra.
Pepperoni algebra.
I love it.
And like that wouldn't work for any of my other siblings. And so she like dialed in. Okay, my son has this problem that I need to help him with, but I'm going to do it in a way that's going to speak to him. And so now I've watched Todd do that, but now I've done that in my own life where like, I don't know, I'll narrow in on somebody, even famous people like Shaun White. I cook for Shaun, and you never know what you're going to like get when you show up to something and there's like this hugely famous other person. He knows you're coming to cook. He has no clue who you are. Like he doesn't know me from anybody. But I could see almost instantly, Shaun's like a very reserved person. Like, and he almost puts off that aura. Like he probably has to be on for so many people that when he gets to be off, it's very relaxing for him.
Yeah.
And so I tuned into that very quickly, and I kept my distance all night, dude. I served him dinner, and I just like played it cool. Like the little boy in me was like, "Oh my gosh, I want to go freaking."
Yeah, exactly.
But then at the end, he came right up to me and he's like, "Yo, I'd love to get a picture. Can we get?" And I was like, what the frick?
Yeah,
like,
you're stoked.
Yeah. So, and I just think that you forget that in those moments, people just want like the real you.
Yeah.
You don't need to turn on something. Anyway, so I think my mom taught me that like engage with people on their level, find out what they need, and then engage at that level.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's so key. Everyone's an individual. Like everyone likes different things. You're so damn good at that. I love that. You're so damn good at that. So again, kind of the point of this podcast and why we have you on is just getting the most out of life, living the most fulfilled life, everything like that. So today's the day, the name of it, the theme of it, everything like that. And we'll keep going because I have a few stories I want you to go and touch on, which I'm really excited for, is just literally going and sucking the most out of life, getting the most out of every single day. You've talked about how you kind of have always had that. What advice would you have to someone where it's like, hey, like this is how you go and like this is how I approach things, whether it's a trial, an opportunity, a party, a trip. Like, what are some things you do, some actual things, like calls to action for people where it's like, hey, just go start doing this. This goes along. I know there's things you do in your routine, everything like that, but what would you say to go get the most out of life? How are you getting the most out of life?
Yeah, I think the answer is it's a mindset. You have to choose every single day to go and get the most out of the day. Like, you just have to make the choice. And some days it's hard, and some days it's easy. Like, you know, going partying, night surfing till midnight. Yeah. It's real hard to get up at 6 a.m. and go run laps on that helipad.
But you do it.
But you got to do it, because if you don't do it, guess what? It's going to be even harder tomorrow.
Yep.
And as long as you keep this pattern, and some days are better than others, but as long as you keep this pattern of positive reinforcement, even through the shit, because the shit's never going away.
Yeah.
You will realize at the end you're happier because you chose to be happier. Listen, though, this is, I mean, you've been giving me a lot of kudos, but one thing that I love about you, and I know a lot of your friends, I know a lot of people that you've associated with. I don't know you your whole life, but I know you, I think, your whole adult life. I mean, we went on your high school.
Almost a decade, bro.
Bro,
It's been almost a decade.
I was on your high school freaking trip. That's when I met you.
So, the best part, I was younger than all them too. I was still in high school. I still had a couple years of high school left.
But listen, this is what I have always admired about you. And it's honestly answering the question you're asking me, which is, I'm not going to drop names. I'm not going to name people, but you had a choice at that point. You had friends who had money. You had friends who were successful. You made a choice to go and work your ass off. And now you're wearing freaking off-white.
A gift. I didn't buy them, but yes,
bro,
a gift.
But,
absolutely.
But you went and worked. And I feel like, again, I'm not trying to make other people feel bad, but like there was a choice you made at 18.
Mm-hmm.
No one gave you anything.
Yeah.
Like, and that for me too. Like my parents didn't give me anything. I didn't get any inheritance. I didn't come from wealth. I made a choice to say, not only am I going to go work hard for the next 20 plus years, but I'm going to have a positive attitude about it.
Mm-hmm.
And what comes in return is people want to be around that. And I've watched you build out your company that way. You are willing to put in the work so that others will put in the work.
Thank you. Yeah.
And the positive energy, that positive energy encircles everything you do. And I love that about what people seem to see in me, but I see it in you too. Like a lot of people didn't choose that, and they're still sitting around like, okay, when's it coming for me?
Dude, thank you, first off. And I can't even take credit because I was lucky enough. And when you mentioned like you get to be around these people, like that's what changed everything. Like seeing Todd's and Casey's and all that, and like having them kind of mentor me, and even just listening in on the conversations or being around them. Yeah. One thing that I think was key for that, and again, thank you, I appreciate it. And like you've been someone I've looked up to since I started literally my adult life. Like you knew me when my only obligation was show up for school, and I was doing that 20% of the time. Like I was 20% fulfilling all my obligations that were very simple obligations. So I appreciate that. But seriously, like, and tell me what you think about this. Like genuinely where it came from was I saw this opportunity to kind of ride coattails a little bit, right? Like I was invited on some really cool trips. I lived a really cool life, and I could have done that and just kind of halfway done my own thing and lived a really cool life in someone else's shadow, right? But what was really like liberating and the best feeling ever is when I took full ownership. I saw these people and I'm like, I don't want to be invited on Casey's trips or Todd's trips. I want to invite people on my trips. Like that's where I want to get to there, and I want to own it. I want it to be because of me. I don't want anyone to give it to me. Like I want to go build it. So it's like, hey, yo, come on my Lake Powell trip, right? Like, and I want to repay people who have done that for me. And like it's a philosophy of just extreme ownership is like the most liberating. And I would argue like building what I've built within my work career, and I assume this is similar for you. That's been just as fun as any trip I've ever gone on.
Yeah.
And it's way more fulfilling too. Like it's a different type of fun, but it's been way more fun. So like, yeah, I mean, what would you have to say about the extreme ownership, just that mentality? Because you've done that since you were young, being the youngest executive chef in Utah. That's no joke at 22, right? Running things how you're running them in your early 20s. You took extreme ownership probably back when you mentioned it, like 14, 15. Yeah. What's it called when you said you're cleaning the grease tray? What's that called? The grease trap?
Grease trap.
Yeah, you're cleaning the grease trap every
grease
weekend.
Trap education, bro.
See, that's so sick. Yeah. Like that's so dope. So I think, yeah, extreme ownership.
This is kind of I've talked about this with other people. When I was a little kid, I have 4 brothers, and my dad used to ingrain in us that your last name matters. It was like our brand. Our last name had value. And he ingrained this in us from like baby. I remember him sitting me down and be like, I worked super hard to make that last name important. Mm-hmm. And now it's your job
to carry it on.
And I agree with that fully. But my little chunk on top of that would be that your name or your last name is your brand.
Oh, yeah.
Every decision you make is who people are going to start to like brand you as. If you're lazy, you're going to get branded as the guy who's like not putting in the work on a Saturday or a Sunday.
Yeah, and people are always watching.
Always.
Always. Like times of peace, times of war, always. I love that. So like I would relay that as the same as like identity. I was running a training. Actually yesterday, one of my leaders ran a training. We dove into identity at our company, and like your identity completely determines your behaviors. Yeah. Right? Like your identity as a Niccoli, like what does that mean? I'm curious. What does that mean to you? Like your brand. What do you want people to view that as?
The guy that's willing to work harder than anyone else, show up when no one else will. That's who I am.
See that we could end the freaking podcast. Like I'm dead serious. Like seriously, like to circle it all into one, like your identity really goes and determines. It's so cool your dad did that for you so early because he gave you this identity of that. Yeah. Like, and you've added to it, obviously. You've spiced it up. I'm sure you're probably, I cannot even imagine Papa Bruno's as wild as Marco. There's no shot. But
bro, I'll show you pictures.
He gave you
how we got down.
That's amazing. He gave you this identity of like your name matters. You're the hardest worker. That's so valuable. It's not even something I even thought to talk about. But like seriously, if you circle everything into one, like going and identifying as I'm the hardest worker in the room. I show up when I show up. I do things all out. Like that's something a lot of people don't ever develop, and people who do develop it aren't lucky enough to develop it as early. And I think that's like the secret. That's the secret salt in success. Honestly, that's the Niccoli salt in success.
What's up, baby?
I love that. What do you feel like? Someone who like maybe they're not sure. I think a lot of people struggle with their identity. Like they don't really have an identity, or their identity isn't what they want it to be. Like I know what our answer was in our training, but like, what do you feel like goes and shapes someone's identity? Like if you're not where you want to be, because there's areas you've fallen short in your life for sure. How do you go and start making those changes to fix your identity, or where's that pivot point?
Yeah. So I think it starts with like the way you dress, like the way you put yourself together.
Present yourself.
Yeah. And like, so if I wasn't a chef, which I can't imagine a world where I wasn't a chef. Okay. I love fashion. Like fashion to me is very rewarding. It's very expressive, which is why I love cooking. It's very rewarding to see people smile when they eat your food. It's just, it like engulfs me. But fashion does the same thing for me. And what I think for other people is the way you present yourself, like it matters. So if you want to start with just like the littlest thing, like maybe you got 100 things on your list to change about yourself. The one thing you can change is how you present yourself, the way you dress, the outfits you choose. No, like the brands. No, the brand. We're wearing all these other people's brands. I love that. We love them.
No, see that is this is why you're episode number 1. That's an answer. No one would come up with that answer. But if you circle back to like business books, that follows the philosophy of if you want to be someone, start acting like them. Yeah. Start doing what they do. But most importantly, and very, very apparent, like it might sound a little bit surface level, but dress how you want to be perceived is so accurate, right?
No, but it doesn't have to be like clean dressed. Own your brand, bro. Like I couldn't pull off that incredible hair you have, but you can. It's your brand. Like people recognize you for that brand. Yeah. And people get so caught up. I'm not saying go buy freaking Louis Vuitton or a Rolex. Like that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is own who you are and start building your brand when you put your pair of pants on. Like that's how people are going to remember you. Mm-hmm. And dude, young chefs always ask me like, oh, I want to do what you do. Like how did you get, like, I want
to be shirtless with the apron. You do that. I want to be in swim trunks with the apron and shirtless, or I want to be free balling in some Dickies. Sorry, you can cut that out. You can cut that out.
Free. I'm free. I'm free as a bitch. No, it kind of annoys me. That question annoys me that like these young culinary students are like, I see what's on your Instagram. I want that.
Yeah.
Bro, I started putting my pants on when I was 14 to get to where I am now. Mm-hmm. It didn't happen overnight. You just didn't see the grind.
Yep.
And if people aren't willing to put it in and like start to identify who you are now, no one's going to respect you when you're 40. Like, it's just not going to happen. It started a long time ago.
Dude, I love that. And to maybe this is even deeper than what you were thinking about it, but like with the idea that icons are made in the shadows, right? putting your pants on, like that's genuinely like the first thing most people do of the day. Yeah. So I think what you're like communicating there is like start your day caring about your brand. Yeah. Start your day caring about how people view you. Start your day caring about how you carry yourself. That doesn't mean you have to go and mimic someone else or do it a certain way, but do it your way and own that shit from the second you wake up till you go to bed every single day. And that's how you go really create a brand and a legacy is what I call it. Like that's how you go create a legacy. And I think what your dad was trying to communicate, and your name means something, is like go make sure the legacy that you leave, because everyone leaves one, is memorable for the right reasons. Yeah. Right. So, I mean, dude, that's so cool. And I love just, the idea of going and really caring about your identity from the second you wake up till you go to bed is so freaking sick. I love that. So Marco, this has been, again, I could talk to you for literally hours. This has been the most fun I've had recording, and I love breaking it down with you. And we've gone, if you looked at my notebook, like where I wanted to go, we are light years away, but I think that's the magic of it, dude. And that's like where the real value is in the entertainment. Like this is something I'm absolutely going to go back and listen to, and you've taken it, like you've crushed it. So again, to disagree with you for the 15th time when you said, I don't think I'll have any value, to go and say it's been unbelievably valuable. Also for me, like eye-opening, really cool. Before we close this thing out though, is there anything that you'd want to hit on? And you've hit on some things that you seem pretty passionate about. Any last like words of advice, like, hey man, if there's a message you could go get out to people, right? Keeping in mind, most of our listeners, high school to 30-year-olds, either wanting to go and start in business, they're just here for entertainment, here to hear the stories, whatever it is, something that you feel like would be of value that would stick with someone if they were to take one thing away from this, like what would you want them to do, or something we haven't hit
on? Bet on yourself and no one else. Like literally, I wasted 20, let's call it 15 years of my career helping other people build wealth and build brands. Build your own brand. Bet on yourself. Double down on yourself. Don't go look for some like magical investment. There's no real estate deal out there. There's no there's nothing. Take that money and bet on yourself, whatever it is. Like as a salesperson, as a culinary person, go bet on yourself. And I didn't realize it until the salt business. Yeah. Like I should have bet on myself a long time ago, because now I'm building generational wealth for myself, not for someone else. So like, I know that there's stepping stones to get there, but along the way, these guys need to realize it. Am I strategically making this decision to build myself or to help build someone else's brand?
I love that. QJ Cole, right? We should seriously roll that song in. No, that's gold. Double down, bet on yourself. Like, that's kind of, I mean, yeah, that's the secret. You wake up feeling fulfilled. Like when you're building your dream, whatever that may be, and your success, however you define that, that's when you go and you get fulfillment out of it. So I freaking love that. Again, Marco, thank you so much. Been a total blast. Thank you guys for tuning in. I think you guys are going to have a blast. Go re-listen, get all the nuggets out of this. This is absolute gold.
Let's go.
Much love, baby. I love it.